Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is John Michael Herico, and currently I am here to talk about my code, more specifically, my first website for my activity right now. And to start with, I'm going to I'm going to be talking about the index code first, like the semantic HTML. So this is basic. This is pretty basic. This is just like my last video that I uploaded in the other channel. However, I will be moving that video over soon as well. Uh, so this is the semantic code, which is essentially the baseline for my website. This is the skeleton as you would assume. And starting from the beginning, you can already tell that it's just not really that complicated, right? So this one here, so to start with, of course, we have to make sure that the HTML language is in English and the website language is in English via this little thing here, HTML language equals English. And that's to start with, right? And the head, which is the very topmost part of a website, is going to be where the title of the website is located. And it is also where you can position the text based on what kind of code you put in, like the width and the scale, the length, and whatnot, right? That one is pretty simple, as you can already see. Title, and then viewport, you can see that's the width there and the scale. It's not really that complicated. Oh, and this one is also the character set. Oh, you can actually tell already from the way I hover over it. So this uses this determines what kind of character sets you're going to be using for the head, because it's limited to this specific area here. That as declared or displayed by the tags. And this one here, just before the end of the head tag, is the link to the sheet, which is our CSS, the style sheet. And this is where we're going to be talking about this later, but this is essentially where the design portion of the website is going to be located. The whole HTML page is the skeleton, which is the structure of the whole website, and then the CSS is the design, like the extra additional designs of the website, like the positioning of text, the positioning of images, the positioning of hypertext images and or text and whatnot, right? And also animations. So I've kept the labels stated in our thing just to make sure that I also don't get confused myself, and also for it to not be confusing during this video. So up next we have the entire body after the head. As you can tell, this is the head. The head always has to be on the top. The body here. So the header, the start portion of the body. So first and foremost, we needed to make a class first. Uh, oh, I'm sorry, I am very allergic today. So this is what separates different sections of a website. So for now, I kept the container class for this specific section, right? So this whole area here is basically where the bigger title, the first header, and the other extra options, like as you can see here, the home, courses, and contacts are. Those the header has no functions unless you want a function, but for this one it doesn't. And this one is the navigation, the utilities, right? I would call it utilities mainly because it's just a UNL. It's not really anything too important. Uh, these three are the hyperlink text. So normally there would be something attached there, but because the website is still bare bones, I'm only showing you how it should be done, the hyperlink text. Uh, and it's not really anything too complicated. You just gotta make sure that it works like that. It looks like that, right? And it is also hyperlinked so that you can click into it. There is no link, however, to it, so it's just nothing. And moving on. So we've finished with this first header, right? And now for the main body, which is the lower portion. I will show you what it looks like later, right? Uh, the main portion here is where majority of the information is going to be stored. The header contains subsections like the navigating tools, like the home screen, the courses, and the contact information, right? For you to click onto immediately. But the main head section here, or not, sorry, not head section, the main section here is essentially where the main content of said subsections are, as stated from the navigation area. So we are essentially currently in the home section. I'm just making sure my microphone is on. And I did not put anything here. This is just for an example after all. And you also have to realize that I kept the labels this way so that when I start with the CSS, it I have to like, somehow like move it to like the left side or the right side. You need to label where you want each section to be to make it easier for yourself and for anyone reading the code. So these ones are not that complicated. It's just another header, right? This is divided by the class, which is the hero text. This is just the text, right? The main content, and then there's the image up here. There's the but and both of these contain the image and the content, right? And the content has most of the text and the images. Well, that's pretty much the same. So, uh, normally when you have something inputted here, it will be something informational and telling you to get started when you open a website, which is why there's the hyperlinked button here, the get started button. It doesn't look like anything right now. It only looks like a regular text in this code. However, once you add the CSS, you will be able to envelop it in another box to make it look far better than just a regular set of words. And for the right side, this is where the image will be held, right? And this is where the class of the hero image will be in. So, well, this one's already simple enough. You just have to source an image from your own computer, from your own set here, which you can see to the left, and make sure that it uses that specific image in this source, right? The source file here, images slash hero JPEG. The reason why it has a slash is because the hero image, the hero JPEG, is in another folder, which is why you had to make a path here. Like for me, it's just called a path, but it says here it's a link. And this is just a placeholder image because it's an alternate name, right? Uh, and then that's the end of the main section, right? Now for the footer, which is the final end. There isn't much here, right? And you just put in a container, another class container, and you just put in the all rights reserved here and maybe some additional info if you'd like. So this is very simple. It's really not that big. It's only like 86 lines if you don't consider the spaces and the headers, right? Simple. Okay, very simple. Nothing complicated. However, to make your website look much better, you're gonna need a CSS. You're going to need to make it far more detailed than just whatever this is. This is all just random text. If I created a website using only this, it would be very different. It would just be extremely simple like the one I showed before. Now, let's move on to the CSS. So the CSS, as I mentioned earlier, is basically the stylized version of the whole thing. It determines what kind of styles or what kind of design you could have for your website. So again, I've kept the labels to make it easier, not just for myself, but also for you, the audience. But I'm sorry. So we start off here with the reset area. You have We started off with the margins and the padding, which determine the margins of the whole website as it is, and also the box sizing, which is bordered, right? That much is obvious. Bordered means that you can see these lines on the sides, right? And you're able to uh, have more space for your peripheral to view certain things at the center so that it's focused. For the body, I chose to have the sans serif Arial Helvetica font and the line height of 1.6. The color, however, as you may be able to notice, is very different. It's not actually the usual black, uh, because I used a black background for reasons that might be obvious. Because I really do prefer darker backgrounds for websites, and then that much is pretty simple, right? Like I've already said it here. This determines the text. The color here determines the text, and the background color determines the background color. It's really not that complicated. Now for the next one, which is the containers, which is the boxed areas around your website. As you, it's been determined in the index as well that there are containers, and this is where you can design your containers, like the width, right, and the margin. I already autoed it because I felt a little bit lazy, but you can change the margins and then the width, the maximum width, the percentage of the whole containers. It depends on your own website, but that's basically how it is. Now for the header, we have the top, which is the border, which is just 2 pixels wide and is solid, just to make it so that it doesn't look ghost-like, transparent, and it has this padding to make sure that it's also different from the rest, that you can differentiate it from the rest. The header container also has different displays, like the flex here, the space between, like the content that has a space between them, and the alignment where you can tell, because for here it's all aligned to the left, where you can align items to the center of it, right? And also to the right if you're weird like that, or just it's just at it's just the right. Now for the header, the first header, header one over here, we have the font size. Uh, there really isn't much left here for the first header because we've already set the color here of the whole thing, right, of the whole body. Uh, and that's There's really nothing else besides the font size, right? So now we move on to the navigation because we also need to make sure that those are noticeable. You could actually put in a box here. Now that I think about it, I could box in the navigation button so that you can tell that you can click on them. So the list style, I did not put anything. That's what I should improve on. The display is a flexed version. The gaps between each of them are 25 pixels wide. So remember the home and the contact section? Yeah, the gap command here basically tells them that you should be 25 pixels away from each other. That's pretty much it. Now for nav A, we have the text decoration, we have the color, which is white, as stated earlier as well. The font weight, which is bold to make sure that the user can see the text very easily. And then the transition color, well, it determines it determines like what kind of color it's going to transition to if you hover your mouse over it, and how long it takes for that transition to happen. 0.3 seconds is a good deal, but I think that which makes it obvious to the person that you can click it if you hover your mouse over it. So I'm going to show you later, but when you hover over it, you can see that it transitions in exactly zero point 0.3 seconds and into this color right here. I would call it light blue, but I think a lot of my friends would already debate over that. Now for the hero section, which is essentially the content, right? The padding here determines again the padded space behind it, which is 70 pixels wide. The content, again, almost the same. Flex has the space between and is centered with a gap of 50 pixels each. Nothing complicated. It's just to make it so that it's very visible and spaced out compared to the other contents, like the head display and the footer. For the text, you also have to put in these, like the flex here, the color, 42 pixels, like the margin at the bottom, font size. Yeah, it's pretty much the same everywhere else. However, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. We have the button. This wasn't here before. So you remember how I said earlier that for the navigation tools, you could theoretically go for an extra navigation, right? Or not navigation, sorry, like an additional designs to make it seem more noticeable to the user. Well, this is what I mean, like a button layout, essentially. So the button layout is what helps something stand out, right? It's the contrast to everything else, and it is what makes the big red button thing very pleasing to the eye, so that you'd probably want to click on that if you want to start with something, right? So we have the display, which is the inline block. That's the most basic, uh, which is the most basic button design. I feel like there should be more. However, I don't actually know anything else. The color of the background for the button itself, and the color for the text inside the button. The padding is basically the size of the whole thing, and the decoration I didn't put anything. The radius of the border is 6 pixels, and the background color transitions in only zero point 0.3 seconds. And the hover is what is basically the shading, again as earlier. When you hover your mouse over it, the button changes color slightly. It'll also change color if you click it. Maybe. I forgot. No, for the image, it's pretty much the same. This is where you determine the border, you determine the width, the size of the whole thing, and the footer is the same as anything else. Now, for the responsive design, the reason why I thought it would be pretty fun is because I just thought, you know, it'd be pretty amusing to have it respond to whatever action you take. Now, I'm not going to explain this too much because, frankly, I don't really fully understand it myself either. At least not yet. I don't really see much of a difference in uh, my live server. However, speaking of the live server, I'm going to show you what it looks like in the live server now because I've already taken up a lot of your time. I'm going to click here at the bottom right to run my own live server. And now this website will open in my browser. This opened in the wrong browser, however, please give me a moment. And then now we have this. So you remember how I told you that the index, the HTML, is just the baseline? It looks very simple. It theoretically could make it so that the website itself is extremely simple. There is nothing there, right? But now with the CSS, this is what your website, or my website in this case, is now looks like now. Yes, this is what it looks like after all the changes. So because of this, right? You remember how I mentioned that you can hover your mouse over things and you see the colors change color, like, or no, that's a, yeah. You can see it here. You can make your website far prettier using using CSS. Like HTML will be the bones, which is where you're going to create the website, like the content you write in there. And then the CSS will be the design. You can split them in two. You can have the HTML and then you can have the CSS, which makes it far easier for you as a user and programmer. Anyway, there you cannot click anything as of yet. I have not attached anything into it, but you can now interact with it, right? And you can also see at the bottom that there's supposed to be a link where it leads you. However, as I've mentioned, there was none here because I didn't put anything. Regardless, that's all for my explanation. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And that's it for me. Bye bye.